People normally use proverb to place emphasis on words and also to lighten tension.
Piano. The one who does a good work is the one who gets support.
No, the whole baby. It means that if you don't know how to run, then you can hide.
What it basically means is that it's the individual who wants his trouble and he's gotten it.
Proverbs are short sayings that give advice or express truth. They can also be defined as wise sayings which represent experiences of a group of people. Proverbs are part of every spoken language handed down from generation to generation. Speakers of various languages use proverbs to impart knowledge, offer advice, teach, or reinforce morals. This documentary seeks to represent Ghanaian culture through Ghanaian proverbs with the principles and views of the Ghanaian people.
A proverb is one of the genres in oral literature. It is one of them that will reflect or represent the experiences of a people over a time that has been tested and found to be true.
They are words weaved in a way that becomes so short, simple, but deep in meaning. And you need somebody who is also vested in that type of language spoken.
It can be a phrase, can be a sentence that is loaded and ought to be decoded for a mere listener in a conversation or in an advice situation. You've got to decode what a proverb is for somebody who is not really familiar with the situations or a culture within which that proverb is coming from.
It's a short sentence with deep meaning that one really has to be conversant with the proverb to be able to, get the meaning.
Proverbs are based on observation. Human beings observe things around them. So human beings observe human beings, they observe animals, they observe nature. And from this, they derive proverbs from it. For example, in Ghana, you can say, "Car fall low from." That is a crab does not beget a bird. And this is said because if you look at a child, you will see the traits of the parents in that child.
A well-spoken person with proverb is somebody who lives within a traditional setting, an indigenous setting, where these things are common, and it's found in the language of the person.
We use proverbs to look at the standard of competence, communicative competence of an individual. So if an individual can mix his speech with proverbs, that person is considered as an orator and a very good speaker. If one cannot, then the level of communicative competence is lowered. So we cherish people who can use proverbs in their language and speech.
He can make a situation which is nasty to seem not to be nasty. He can, for instance, say things that are meant for those who are supposed to hear, and those who are not supposed to hear, no, they may be there, but they will not understand what is being said.
For somebody to say that this speaker is very rich in proverb speaking. It means the person is well vested in that type of language. And so when it comes to maybe advising you, he will not just be talking too much about what you have done. If the person is so vested in Proverbs, he can just use 2 or 3 Proverbs on you and tell you that a word to a wise is enough.
It's difficult to mark a point in time that will be considered as the beginning of the history of Proverbs, because Proverbs are part and parcel of the people's life. So you can trace the history to the beginning of the society. So if you are talking about ever Proverbs, then you are talking of ever Proverbs from the existence of the Evers. If you are talking of account Proverbs, so it's unlike war that you can say it was fought in this year or that year. So there's no historical mark of the Proverbs of a people.
In the ancestral world, people experience so many ways of life. And so with those experiences, people gathered short speeches with wisdom. We put together and we say these are Proverbs.
History taught us that Proverbs have ever lived with our forefathers. Wherever you migrated from, Proverbs comes with you. So Proverbs, we can say that the history of it, even though not documented, has lived with our forefathers over the years.
Proverbs are part and parcel of the people's life. So every aspect of their life, from cradle to death, will have Proverbs. So there will be Proverbs for child naming, Proverbs for marriage, Proverbs for puberty, Proverbs for death, Proverbs that will relate to poverty, Proverbs about hard working, Proverbs about laziness. Every aspect of our life will have some Proverbs alluding to them. If you're talking about marriage, for instance, there were proverbs that will say that Okwawaria Bisa. If you want to enter into any marriage, please inquire.
We have proverbs for every occasion, but it is the occasion that will call for that proverb.
So when someone is bereaved and you go to the person, let's take for instance, somebody has lost the child. You can simply say that, Minya, kwakuma toyem. Insua, hina idiko nsuno, eba, ena asay. Na se nsuno hwegudia, yebasa kwasa fufuro. Just take heart. The pot that we use to fetch water, when it breaks, then we have a problem. But if only the water has poured down, we can use the same pot to go and fetch another water.
We don't create a proverb that we are creating in anticipation of something. Situations come, and those situations, out of the situation and the experiences, proverbs are created. Now, when this proverb comes into being, it fits into other situations. So when you need the proverb, you go and carry it. So proverbs exist. You need it in this instance. So whatever proverb you need in an instance, you deploy that proverb.
We can divide proverbs into 2 and call one verbal proverbs. The verbal proverbs are proverbs that are done by word of mouth. But the proverbs can also be transferred from verbal onto symbols. So when you take the linguist staff, some of the symbols are proverbial. Even the textiles, the cloth that we wear, a lot of them are proverbial. There's one textile cloth with a ladder, and it is called Uwiachedie. Uwiachedie is a shorter form of Uwiachedie or Bakumfro. That ladder is not climbed by a single person. To wit, we all die. So anytime we move a proverb into symbolism, to be able to remember it very easily, we shorten the proverb, and we'll call that truncated proverbs. So you see them on umbrellas of kings, some of the paraphernalia of the chiefs. If you go to the chief's palace, most of the symbols that you see there will be proverbs. And most of the Dinkra symbols you see are also proverbial.
For instance, we have a symbol called Jinyame. So in every situation, if I have that symbol with me and I raise it to you and you understand or you know the name of that symbol, you are encouraging me that whatever I'm doing, I should go on until God says no. It's perceived to be yes. Symbols has relations with proverbs.
You can talk about even animals, for instance. You can talk about pictures. You can also talk about, say, the moon, for instance. It's a symbol. You can have proverb around that. For instance, you can say, ba sahunkaba ko dogonkaba yake bada kake ganin wata, meaning that it is not because of your stature or height that you are able to see the moon. You see, in this case, we are using the moon, but meanwhile, it connotes something else. It is not because of who you are that you are able to achieve something. If given a situation and the same condition, somebody could have also achieved the same.
There are some symbols that are stand out in nature, and those symbols themselves are proverbs. They ought to be interpreted to you. So there's a relationship between symbols and proverb.
In Ghana, for instance, you will see a symbol of a bird that is looking, it has bent the neck backwards. Now, that shows us that ke oshi no kwose oyako eje tomon. That means if you leave something and then you remember and go back for it, you have not sinned.
We have difference between wise saying and proverbs, but slightly. Slightly in the sense that when your grandpa sits you down and decides to tell you experiences in life, he will be telling you wise sayings. But to press it up, make it very simple, cute, but deep in meaning, that is where we say you are using proverbs.
In some jurisdictions, people refer to proverbs as wise sayings. But among the other people, wise sayings are not the same as proverbs. Proverbs are lododo, and they have to be decoded. That one is not negotiable. Wise saying, nyadeto, they are things that, statements, sentences that are made with richer language, but you don't necessarily need decoding to understand wise saying. And the wise sayings are based sometimes on personal life experience about people who wants to talk about to their children, to their people, their experiences in life. They pick things from that. For example, somebody says, "Evenono nugayo, evenono nugayo." Evenono nugayo is not a proverb; it's a wise saying. Why is it a wise saying? It is great to be two. Great to be two, male and female, not male and male, not female and female.
Ghana, there is no clear distinction between a wise saying and a proverb. What in English is considered as a wise saying in Ghana is a proverb. What we can rather say is that there is a difference between a proverb and what? An idiomatic expression. But sometimes the idiomatic expressions can still be Proverbs.
There's a whole area we call wittisms, from the word wit. So wit deals with wisdom. So wise sayings can be of many types, and Proverbs will be only one of them. So when we take riddles, they are part of wise sayings. When you take what we call puzzles, they are part. Some idioms are part, and Proverbs will be part. So the bigger thing will be wise saying, and Proverbs will be one of the branches. That's why we define Proverbs as a wise saying representing the experiences of the people. The first thing I will say is, Asamba na abebuaba. That only means that Proverbs are only quoted when there are issues. Apentem ni enyantem nenam. If you want to get things in haste, you get them early, but the overall result will not be the best.
Hausa dialect, for instance, we have a proverb which says, Ruabaya Sami Banza, meaning water does not get bitter or sour for nothing. It simply means there is a reason for everything that happens. So you can, if somebody is in a certain situation, you can give him this example, for instance, that nothing happens without a cause. We also have this one which says, Abun de zamanaka, abun kwadu, baya hawabisa, meaning that what belongs to you, what is destined to you, will surely get to you. Literally, what it means is that what belongs, the share that belongs to the frog, never goes to the skies. It will always come back to him.
Koke ekangala ebe. That is, if you say it shouldn't get burnt, it will not get cooked at all. This is the situation, literally, you are cooking, and you don't want the fire to be enough. So you just put a little fire underneath. The thing will not get cooked. But if the fire is there, you have to be constantly, you have to watch so that it doesn't burn. So you put in enough fire so that the thing will, and in the same, the meaning is that if there is something, you want something, you don't want to work towards that, you will not get it. You are looking for something, you have to work towards it.
You cannot miss one game in the forest and say that you have not gotten any game from hunting expedition. It means that if you're a young lady or a young man and you have a proposal of marriage from somebody and suddenly disappointment comes, you wouldn't say that because I have missed one man, therefore men are finished. You have to journey on to get more.
There are situations where proverbs may not be suitable to be uttered. And one of those is where certain category of people are involved, for instance. For instance, if there is a proverb which has to do with a certain person's disability, I don't think it will not be appropriate for you to utter a proverb which concerns such a person.
Proverbs can also come as a disrespect sometimes to people. You know, if you don't say it at the right time, it means you are disrespecting an authority, or you are disrespecting elderly people, or you are disrespecting people that you ought to respect.
Proverb is also contextual. It's the context. Context in terms of the people around. Context in terms of the place. And then context in terms of the issue at stake. But proverbs that relate to history and that will cut some slur about a society, if you are within the society, you can't quote those proverbs. A typical example is in Tim Jackery, and I also an Kobono Fiyase. This is based on history about the Dentra people who fought with the Ashantis. The Ashantis were fighting a war of independence, The Denchers were very strong. But one of their chiefs at that time was called Ntim Jakari. And he suffered the defeat at a place near Kumasi called Fiyase. It's a proverb. It has come to stay. But if you are at Denchra and you quote this proverb, you are bringing the reminiscences of their defeat. So it will not be appropriate to use this proverb at a palace in Denchra.
In the midst of elderly people and the youth are not supposed to say proverbs when the elderly are in their midst. It is only the elderly who will say the proverbs. But if a young person is hard pressed to use it, then in Ghana he will say, "Tamoboni onukpaeke," or "Tomoboni onukpaeke," and then say the proverb, which means he is seeking permission from the elderly, and the proverb is not coming from him, but what you, the elderly, have said is what I am saying.
You can even use the sebe to quote a proverb that in ordinary terms will be prophanic. It's a profane, but you use the proverb to say that, okay, it's not my intention to come out with something that is vulgar. That's why I'm saying sebe sebe. And you can even intensify it by saying sebe sebe mprediasa. So apology 30 times. To show that I don't want to feel guilty before you. I'm asking permission. Then you are free to go.
Proverbs are like salts that we use to season the language. So in the society, when we use the proverbs, it makes our language rich.
Our society recognizes somebody who can really speak in proverbs than somebody who could not. I mean, the elderly and most of us would prefer such a person because he is able to convey his opinion and says whatever he really wanted to say in a very short sentence but deep in meaning.
It shortens speech time. Economically, when you waste time, you are wasting money. And we waste time with our speeches. Long speeches that maybe could have been shorter with proverbs. We ignore our own cultural heritage. And then we read long speeches to waste our times.
Proverbs are very important in the sense that they regulate and control our actions and inactions. I take myself an example. Some of the things that I do, quickly some proverbs come into mind, and then it tells me whether to move forward and act or rather to stop. In our present times, we may need the proverbs, especially to advise the politicians about their deeds and misdeeds. We may also need the proverbs to tell them that the infighting, intra-politics and then inter-politics will not send us anywhere. After all, if you cut your tongue and you eat it, you haven't eaten any meat. After all, we are one. And then we will tell them that the teeth and the tongue fight, but later on they sit down and then resolve the issues. So the proverbs can be used to advise the politicians. And you, the youth, you also need the proverbs to advise you as to how to go about with your life. Because the elders will quote the proverbs to tell you about their experiences, so that with that, you see them as your mentors, and you can use the proverbs to shape in your life.
If proverbs are not important to us as a people, as Ghanaians, our proverbs would have been dead by now. Because they are so important and they have helped us over the years, they have motivated us, they have encouraged us. In fact, they have discouraged us at some point. There are proverbs that will discourage you, but you need to move on. So they have been helpful, they have been good, and they have held together us. In fact, Proverbs have kept some rich aspect of our language. We can say that Proverbs have been custodians of even the language we have spoken. So we must protect them with our lives.
The use of Ghanaian languages seasoned with Proverbs define our cultural intelligence and maturity in our acquired languages. Enunti na mpanyinfoɔ se, ɔbanyansafoɔ yɛbu no bɛ, yɛnka no asɛm.
Coffee, what is it?
Papa,
What is it? I didn't know where it is.
What is it?
This will definitely take the family name to places.
Wow. I'm so proud of you, my son.
I just thought to hurry up, come here. Assembly Nancy. When you say, I don't want to look for Ababeko US now. Assembly Nancy. My son here has made me proud. He deserves a photo. Kofi, bra, let me get a photo. Hey. Can I get a job if you are I don't know you do a grab. Kofi says, and then you that. Aja, shemuye. Oh. Okay. Arabia, come, join us to take this picture.
But you have taken one already. You know photographs are expensive.
Adobia, you should be in this photograph. Today is a memorable day.
Yes. Hey, Eja photo. All you care about is your money.
Adobia, smile. Good. If I may ask, what is this all about?
My son came home today with his terminal report, and he was first.
First? This is a doctor in the making. God knows this village needs a doctor.
Hey, Jab, photo stop. My son here will be a farmer. In fact, the best farmer in the whole village.
Isn't it too early for you two to be choosing a career for the boy? Let him enjoy the moment a little before you rob him of his childhood.
In fact, you have to kill for him. Kill the fattest fowl in this house for me. See to it.
I will.
I'll be coming for the head of the farm.
I just put to me a cocoa.
Money no be palava, it no be wahala.